That's good. Good morning. It's November, Nonfiction November, and it's time for a new vlog. Now, I know I look like shit. Let's just fix it right now. Okay, so we are in November, but specifically we're in the first week of November, the first weekend of November, for which I have planned to do a special election reading vlog. My goal here is to, one, educate myself, obviously, but also to enjoy myself with some pretty damn good books, and to just ingrain this memory in video. Personally, I want to be able to remember this moment in history, whether it's good or bad. I think it's a significant moment that's worth remembering, how it played out, my reactions to it. Maybe you aren't interested in that. I hope you are. I hope you enjoy this vlog regardless. And that's why I'm going to have books, of course, to spice it up. This will also just be an experience, right? We have to go through a major election, perhaps the most important one in the history of our nation. I don't know what will happen. I have hopes, obviously, but all we can do now is wait and enjoy ourselves with some books in the meantime. So the books that I want to read, the first one I'm probably going to start with, I haven't started any just yet. I'm going to start with, I'm not about to drop a book, no. One Person, One Vote by Carol Anderson. And this is the same author who wrote Right Rage, which was a very popular book recently, like back in June, when there was the recent rise in the Black Lives Matter movement. And this is exactly as it sounds, about voter suppression. I think I said one person, one vote. I think it's one person, no vote. This is quick and succinct. I've heard that it is somewhat repetitive compared to what's in the other book, at least a little bit, but there's still a lot of new information. In either case, even if it is repetitive, I want to reread White Rage because these kind of books are so concise, yet have so much to say, and there's always more to learn every read through, right? So that's the first one I'll be reading. Then I'm going to be also reading After Trump, which was an ARC that I got recently. It was published back in September. I got this because I heard about it actually on, it was either NPR, PBS NewsHour, or a podcast from the Quick Political Report. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It's supposed to be about how the nation moves forward after Trump, how the institutions, how the court, and how our country in general. And this is regardless of the fact that if he wins the election or if he doesn't, whether it's now or in 4 years, it's about how we move forward. Because obviously he has irrevocably changed our nation and even the institution of the White House, the institution of the presidency. And I think this will be a fascinating book. It is 436 pages, which is a bit of a chunker, longer than I realized, but I don't think it'll be that bad. It's not on audio, but I will be using my e-reader to sort of push through it. Next, I'll be reading Hamilton. His name was Alexander Hamilton, and there's a million things he hasn't done. Like, read this book. I got this book for my birthday in October 2018, and I have yet to read it, and so it's about time that I read it. It is basically the making of Hamilton, not the actual book, but the play is written by Lin-Manuel Miranda and James McCarter. And you have all the lyrics in here, but you also have, oh, look at that. You have, like, pictures and shit that just will help you understand the process. And this one obviously isn't as directly related to the election so much as the foundation of our nation. I'm rhyming because I'm so excited for Hamilton. It's a bit of a stretch to fit it in this one, but I think this will be sort of a fun or more fun thing to include here. So these are what I'm reading. This, and the one you can't see virtually. Let's go ahead and move forward. If you're wondering what I'm drinking, it's a banana strawberry vanilla smoothie. Chocolate. Oh shit. Banana chocolate vanilla strawberry smoothie. So basically every sweet thing I own thrown into one delicious combo. Let's get reading, okay?
6 hours later.
Okay, it's already 6 o'clock and I haven't done any reading yet. It's already dark outside. Look up there. Do you see that? Do you see that? I forgot about daylight savings time. I need to read, so I think I need to clean, do some laundry. Maybe I'll listen to a book and I'm going to get started. I know I haven't done much today, but I wanted to relax. Last month was a busy month, and I'm hoping this month will be more relaxed. What I did leading up to Carol Anderson's book, I have listened to Code Switch's coverage of her book and in the election in general, discussing voter suppression. It was an interesting podcast to introduce myself to the topic, and it focuses a lot of the conversation on obstacles put in place, modern day it is, to make it very difficult to vote, from voter IDs, which are essentially just a poll tax in a form where you have to basically pay money to be able to vote. And then of course voter purging, which they talked about specifically about Georgia, which, as someone who lives in Canada, my permanent address is still in Georgia. I am from Georgia, and so it hits home. But I ought to get going.
I don't understand. I don't understand, Paige. I don't understand. I don't understand.
This book is amazing. I mean, obviously I expected that, but Jesus, it's really, the evidence is so incontrovertible, and well, I don't know. This book is, first off, I don't think it's just a rehash of the old book. Maybe if I had read the other book, The White Rage, right before this one, I would notice the similarities. But this book, I think, really expands in a way that one doesn't. One thing that I was really left with from White Rage was me thinking, I think the most impactful part of it was the conversation about the leading up to voter suppression, and how that is one of today's biggest forms of blatant racism by politicians and by the government actively being done. This really digs deep into that conversation to really so definitively prove it. I know I don't have a right to be angry right now, but it's definitely a book I highly recommend people read. Very informative. But one thing that keeps coming to mind for me is, or has been coming to mind right now, is thinking about the state of voter suppression and the way in which Republicans are able to stay in power and basically use that power to enact these kind of laws. And I can't help but think about the integrity of the system and how they fight really hard to keep Democrats from crossing these lines, because, you know, you can't think about the integrity of the system. Things like packing the court and trying to use this guise of you can't break decorum and, you know, decay the integrity of the system. When the fact is the system is already decayed. They've already broken other types of norms in a way that's giving them a warped sense of power despite their lack of actual votes, lack of support. And I mean, that's not just true with the Supreme Court, even the lower courts. It's true in the fact that they're able to so easily not only enact these laws, but then defend them. I mean, the Supreme Court got rid of the Voting Rights Act. They basically got rid of it because it did its fucking job. It did its job and kept states from enacting racist laws, and because there are no racist laws, therefore it's no longer necessary. It's easy when you see like Justice Roberts being sort of a split vote sometimes, thinking, oh, he's a decent person, but really he's not. I mean, he's a big piece of why that Voting Rights Act gets largely weakened. And even when it comes to take a tangent here, even when it comes to his decisions, I think we know what's coming from. He's trying to save face as the Chief Justice. He wants to keep the court on a more moderate side, from being too extreme. But as we get to a situation where we have a 6-3 court, I think it's very likely that he will probably switch to it just being with the Republicans, because at least then you have a court that is more uniformly deciding together, which does not bode well for the state of many things. Big among them, of course, being voter suppression laws. What can we do if the entire system, the people in charge who legislate, the people who judge those legislation, work together to push this narrative, to push these false narratives of voter fraud, and that the things they're doing are necessary, and what they're really doing is like a calculated attack on the people who would not vote for them. And if that happens to be a group of people based off their race, who cares? It's not about that. It's about them staying in power and not letting the people who will vote against them have a right to vote. The irony here is that why don't minority people want to vote Republican, or at least why is it that they think that, or why is that the case? There's two opportunities here. They could either try and reframe their conversation to be more inclusive, which I think would probably be pretty successful. I mean, it's not as if minority groups are a monolith. They don't all have liberal views, and that's, again, very clear by the dissections we see even in this election. But instead, you have the alternative where you just try to suppress the vote of the people who don't agree with you. And the thing is, it's just such a desperate attempt, like a last-ditch effort that is just, it's bound to die. Jesus Christ, why not just change the conversation? Why it's not necessary but I don't know. It's a very good book, very informing, and it's very engaging. I feel very engaged, very energized. I signed up to do voter calling thing. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I signed up for something to get people to come out and vote. I had a text actually from the Warren group, campaign who I donated money to, gave them my phone number. They keep texting me, and they said I could help. And I was like, I can't help, I'm in Canada. And then I realized, wait a second. I mean, I am in Canada, but I can still make phone calls. But I am really enjoying this book. Like, when I say enjoyment, I have a word sense of enjoyment. A book that is this engaging, this informative, to me is a type of joy. Like, it's not happy joy. It's definitely something I appreciate. Maybe that's a better word. I'm really appreciating this book. Getting motivated to clean. As you saw, it is snowing. I am very disappointed in the weather right now. Very disappointed in you, weather. Mother Gaia, I had such faith in you. You betrayed us. In any case, I still thoroughly into this book, very much into it. I don't know if I would say I like it more than the other one. I do think there's a conversation to be had about it being, perhaps would be more persuasive as an introduction, rather, than White Rage to someone who doesn't already accept systematic racism as a problem. Because, like I said before, White Rage, to me, the last section really brought home this fact. Like, there's some undeniable racism of the past that we can all agree, even the people who try to deny today's racism. And it's this conversation about today that I think is really need to be had for these people to try and persuade them. Is this a fruitless effort? Maybe, but I think this is a very powerful book in that sense. I am curious though, because I know Republicans are the only ones who try to warp the system, and I know I was talking about Democrats before as if they're angels, and they're not. But I am curious because this is a very mostly anti-Republican book, so far at least. And I'm curious if there will be a conversation had by Dr. Carol Anderson, or if there's one to be had outside of this book that wasn't had in the book. If you're the kind of person who doesn't like politics, first off, I doubt you're watching this. But if you are, by chance, please consider this or one of our other books. Our books are very small and concise, but they get the point across very, very effectively. Okay, I wanted to update you. We're at a point where she's talking about the purging of voters in an Ohio law that basically says that if they hadn't voted within 6 years, they will receive a postcard saying you have to update in 30 days or whatever, some deadline, or you'll be removed. As it turns out, like, first off, that is problematic in itself, even if it wasn't a law, but there's a law. The law of how you purge people explicitly says, in spirit and in the name of the law, you cannot purge someone for not voting. It is not illegal not to vote. You cannot purge someone for that. The way it works is, it is on the state. It's on the state to prove that this person, or to demonstrate this person has done something to justify their removal. Meaning, has there been a notification of death? Has there been a notification of a name change? A notification of a change in address? And all of that failing to be followed by a updated voter registration. Then they can send out the postcard and say you need to update this or you're going to be removed. People are being removed for just not voting, which is illegal, flat out illegal. And it's just a way of increasing obstacles, and it removes the burden on the state to actually get shit done. And I really like this description because, sorry to bump the table, I'm very energetic right now, because I know I've heard a lot of conversations about this in Georgia from Stacey Abrams, and I had yet to really get an in-depth look at what was going on. And this isn't about Georgia right now, but I assume she's about to talk about Georgia, because I know Georgia did the same thing this year. If you hadn't voted in the last election, you had to update your registration, and they put out cards saying you'd update. Like, I got a card saying you'd update, probably because I changed my address, which I guess that was prompted at least. But I am pretty sure that my mom, who's been at the same address for I don't know how long, got one too. It seems so harmless, but then there's statistics or facts about the fact that certain minorities are less likely to respond to cards or requests for information than white Americans. Like, that as an example. This is an issue. Like, it's in my state where Stacey Abrams, the first black woman ever to be nominated for governor in any state, lost by a very small margin. Very small margin. It's pretty damn infuriating. I know most of you will read this yourself, or you may already know this, but I know there are people in my family who watch these and do not know this. This is why this is wrong. This is what's going on in our state. They are purging people illegally, And even if it wasn't illegal, it is still clearly unnecessarily putting up obstacles when it is on them to prove it. Because there are ways. If you are the fucking government, you have that information of who's paying their taxes, who's getting bills and shit. You have a way of checking on their own who did what. Instead, they want to put the burden on the people, and it's not how it works. Not how it works. It's not okay. It's just shit's infuriating. But I did have the idea. I mentioned that I was going to be trying to do some calls for the Biden-Harris ticket, but definitely the next time we do any election, I realize now there's more I can do in Canada than I realized, beyond just giving money that I don't have. This book is really making me think about those kind of things, about what I'm doing and what more can be done. Even though she's not explicitly talking about that, at least not yet. I think it's a necessary result. Like, it's not enough just to get angry. I have to think about what can we do different to make these things happen. Because obviously, I'm not the one who made this happen. But, in 2008, I definitely voted for people who did. And since then, I've been at best complacent. What am I doing with this on my shoulder? I don't know. I'm going back in. It's late, it's almost 2, but I'm almost done. I have less than an hour left in the book. Still thoroughly engaged, thoroughly appreciating what's going on. She's now moved on to a conversation with gerrymandering. She mentions in passing of how the Democrats said this a lot, but that's all she mentioned, like was one sentence, half a sentence even, and so there wasn't much conversation there. And so it does seem like she's a little bit biased, and I say that as someone who is very, very liberal, very quick to vote for the Democratic Party, so I'm just trying to be extra critical of myself as well. But I think it's not really that relevant in the conversation either, because if we think about what the point of the conversation is about the fact that there is voter suppression going on. If 80% of the people voting vote for Democrat, and yet we get majority Republicans, and clearly there's something going on there, our vote basically is meaningless. Saying like, oh, Democrats do it too, is basically akin to saying, oh, when someone says black people being killed by the police, like, oh, well, white people get killed too. It's like, so you agree it's bad. You agreeing it's bad. So what's the point? What are you just distracting? So my point is like, I recognize that there's a focus on Republicans here that might suggest a bias, but it really isn't that relevant either. It really speaks to just a blatant fault in our system that this could have survived this long. And we need a system in place to fix it. Otherwise, our system really isn't one person, one vote. I mean, the Electoral College already makes it to where it's not really one person, one vote. But I'm gonna get ready for bed and try to finish off this audiobook tomorrow morning when I wake up. I feel like I'm spending too much time on the first day vlogging for y'all, but in my defense, I feel like we're talking about the most important book that I'll be reading. Personally, I think it's the most thing to facilitate conversation. Obviously, all this is on my mind leading up to the election, so. Okay, it's 1:30 and it is Monday, and I am currently canvassing. There's a list of all the people who's been volunteering. I'm not doing this well. I have like 20 calls on that list, but I think I'm at 30 now. Not really successful. A lot of not answering, and a couple refusals, and 2 people saying they've already voted blue, which was nice. So I finished my first 3 hours of calling. I got 120 people, 120 calls made. I didn't accomplish anything. Most of those 120 were just numbers that were old or didn't answer. No one seemed to need my help just yet. I don't know. I feel like I'm doing something wrong. But I'm learning. So I guess they say even if you don't accomplish anything, it's still like making a difference. It is kind of exhausting though, I'm not going to lie. I should do some work today, but I'm probably going to take a break before my next session. The 6 o'clock session in Georgia Phone Bank is going to be started off by an intro from Cher. Cher of all people. It's going to be like, oh, if I could turn back time, I wouldn't, because then I would be further away from Cher. Seriously though, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. Even people who didn't want to vote, who clearly aren't voting for Biden, or kind. There was one lady who I said, well, can I count a vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? And she's like, definitely not, but in the nicest way possible. Okay, I'm going to finish one person, no vote. Hi, so one quick update. I'm thinking, I don't know what I'll do, but maybe I'll read this after I finish one person, no vote. I bought this a while back when it first came out. I told myself I'd read it. It's very short. I'm sure it'd be easy to listen to very quickly. And the thing is that if Trump loses, the chances of me reading this drop significantly because I stopped caring, because life does not matter to me anymore. Depending on my time today, I might try and fit this in. This is Mary Trump, his niece's discussion of him. From what I heard, like, there's nothing really we didn't know. It would be nice to try and fit this in, even though it's super short. Ugh, that face, I hate it. Okay, I started this, and it's fine so far. I've only just gotten into it, but I'm exhausted. It's 9:30, and this phone calling, honestly, it isn't that bad. I don't mind just pushing through it, but it's tedious, and it is taxing, believe it or not, having to prepare myself for these phone calls. I only had one really bad phone call, and even that, I think it was more amusing than anything else. But I'm going to stay up and play some video games while I listen to this, because I want to get through it. I have like 2.5 hours worth of book to read, and I really shouldn't have picked this up because I had other books prioritized, but I do want to get through it, and I think it'll be an easy read, so I'll get through most of it tonight, hopefully, if I don't fall asleep playing video games. I have an appointment at 8 o'clock a.m. to participate again for the phone calls, but that's from 8 to 11. I did not sign up for any time after that, even though it continues, partly because I knew I wanted to follow what's going on. I didn't want to do that all day long, which is why I chose 3 different sessions, which I felt like was a good amount of time. I didn't even realize when I registered for 6 p.m., that Cher was going to be there to introduce us. How exciting is that? But that was great. Oh wait, did I mention I finished the book? So I finished One Person to Vote. I really enjoyed it. I think again, not enjoyed. I really liked the book. I appreciated what it had to say. The ending conversation was a lot about gerrymandering, and then about the long-term effects, or rather the effects that are happening right now. She talks about a lot of relevant elections that are going on, and the impact that the removal, or the decaying of the Voting Rights Act, well, not the act, but the whatever it was that made it so that there's a system in place to keep changes from happening without definitive proof that it's not racist. When that was basically weakened by the Supreme Court recently, John Roberts, it paved the way for a lot of the things we see today. That, coupled with gerrymandering, has led to Congress being overwhelmed by Republicans who do not have a majority a lot of the times, and this is also true on a state level, and she does a really good job just laying it all out and making it pretty straightforward. It makes for a pretty persuasive argument on why this is not a democracy. I think I said pretty much everything there is to say about that. I highly recommend the book. It's really good. Let's dig into this. So far as you just introducing the ideas of her relationship to Trump, I don't know how I feel just yet. It's fine. I don't expect to actually love this book that much. I might be mildly interested. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching my prologue election vlog, where I read One Person No Vote by Carol Anderson. This was originally supposed to be the beginning of my entire election vlog, but this has turned out to be over an hour long, and I also realized that my Carol Anderson discussion was distinctly different from the actual election coverage, which is why I decided to split this into 2 different vlogs. If you've watched this far, thank you so much. Give me a fist in the comments to show that you did watch, and I hope you check out the next vlog because it was a lot of fun. This entire process has been so much fun. I know it's a scary process, but especially now that we know the outcome, it feels a lot better, right? Being able to sit here and live through this, and also discuss some, I think, pretty good books, honestly. And I hope to see you next time, and as always, hope you stay safe. Goodbye.